This is my truth about Etsy. One of the things that I personally had an issue with the products that I sell is other sellers who are price undercutting. And while I do understand that everyone is going to be able to set their own profit margin, certain ingredients are going to be a different cost for somebody else depending on where they live, essential oils versus oil blends. It's all going to make it a little bit different. But I'm talking about the people who maybe don't make their own candles, they buy in bulk. And I'm using candles because that's my shop, that's my experience. And maybe they will just add vinyl to the outside of a candle. They're able to sell that for a very, very low price because their profit margin is going to be different than, say, someone like me who purchases their own glass and melts their own wax and uses really good quality products and puts it all together. As an Etsy seller, you don't always get, in fact, most times you don't get paid for your time at all. You try and build these things into your cost. You need to make a profit. That's how we make a living. That's how we pay our bills. And it can be incredibly hard when price undercutting is so widespread and almost unmanageable. There's no real response or recourse from Etsy as to how to deal with this. One of the things that I also have an issue with frequently is the platform technical issues. And for me, that looks like when I'm at an in-person event and my Square is set up through Etsy so that I can take in-person payments. And I pay for those. There's a fee for that. It's not like a free service. Everything costs me, which is, understandable. Etsy is a business. I am a business. I understand how that works. But I frequently have issues with Square where I can't get anything to sync. When it doesn't sync, I can't post new products or I can't sell them the way that I want to. So, for example, if I make these candles today, and then I take my pictures and I do my product listings and I get them up on Etsy, and then tomorrow I go to sync them because let's say in a couple of days I had an in-person event. I go to sync them and they won't sync. So then when I'm in person, I have two options. Is I can either find something else in my product library, trying to figure out the price and put those things in, sell it that way, which is going to mess up my inventory counts and it's not going to help me as far as feedback for what I have sold. Or I can not sell it through Etsy and just do a point of sale, one person to one person, pay the fee on my own, pay the taxes, do all those things, but then I don't get the sale on Etsy. So that can be frustrating because as an Etsy seller, if I am willing to pay the fees that come with using Square and using Etsy at an in-person event so that I can keep everything together, help my Etsy sale numbers, and Etsy is going to get a part of my profit, then I should be able to consistently use Square, should consistently be able to count on the method of payment that Etsy has chosen for its platform. And I can't. That can be hard is there's not a whole lot that you can do if a customer is going to leave you a bad review. Now, granted, if you get a bad review because it's something that you've done wrong, then you should try to fix it. And sometimes you just have to take the hit, right? But for example, I had a very popular candle. It was a Harry Potter themed butterbeer candle. And I was very clear that this was my interpretation of butterbeer. And I had a few people who left feedback that they had been to, the Universal Wizarding World and this was not butterbeer. And I found it very interesting because one, I made it very clear it was my interpretation. And two, my interpretation was based off of the books that I grew up reading, like so many of us did, and not a theme park. So I was kind of disappointed on a personal level because I put a lot of time and heart and thought and soul into these candles. But as an Etsy seller, I was frustrated because then I might lose my star seller because somebody wants my candle to smell a certain way. They didn't say it was bad. It just didn't match up to the Universal, theme park butterbeer smell that they were hoping it was. Etsy doesn't have anything in place to really help you. They sure want you to hit your numbers and they sure want you to be star seller. They want you to spend money for the ads, but they're not really gonna help you when it comes to things like that. It can be hard too when you are pouring so much money and time into a product, and it was something that for me meant a lot. And so to get negative feedback sucks to begin with. It just does. I'm human. And then I was left with this review that there wasn't really anything that I could do about. And so that can be some frustrating aspects of Etsy as well. One of the other things that I struggle with is I feel like the algorithm is constantly changing, and by the time I figure it out, it's changed again. And sometimes I personally have felt like it's almost stacked against me. Like I'm never going to be able to get ahead. There's this pressure I have found. There's a pressure on Etsy to be its own Amazon, and you cannot compete with Amazon prices. Most of the time, it's not a handmade item that a person has poured a lot of soul and made small batches of. And if we're going to be steered in the direction on Etsy of thinking like Amazon and selling like Amazon, then I don't really see the point. And I think that's something that I've been struggling with. And one of the reasons I neglected my Etsy shop for so long was because I wasn't feeling supported as a small maker, and I was feeling pressure to compete with Amazon. And I don't want to compete with Amazon. I don't want to compete with anyone. I want to make the product that I like and I want to sell it. Of course, there's going to be competition with other sellers, but I'm not trying to be in some rat race. That's why I went to Etsy, and that's why I like Etsy. And so it's been a little disheartening to see that side of it.